10 years ago, there was not a whole lot of awareness amongst our customers for green building, and it was really tough to be in that business.
I think our goal was just to share information and not feel like we were alone, because it was a struggle to get things done, even within our own firms. At the firm I was working at the time, it wasn't really an accepted way of doing things. I had to argue with engineers about this and that, and really force solutions until people caught on that it was, this really does work and it's real and it makes a difference and it is easier or it's better.
But I would say the general conversation within firms was not very strong in green building. It was more the self-selected few that were interested in it. In fact, when I was on the Committee on the Environment for AIA, when the National Convention came here, and I'm trying to remember what year this was, but it was before the chapter was formed, we did a survey of vendors asking them about their green products. And they basically couldn't answer the question. Architects weren't asking. The conversation was just, with a few exceptions, could people really even give an answer?
So I worked for a manufacturer that made building specialty products that really are things that are an afterthought that go into a building. And I also was very passionate about environmental issues, but in terms of marketing my products, nobody really cared that my products were sustainable. And I came to the USGBC and all of a sudden met all of these like-minded people who were really excited about something being sustainable. And it really, encouraged me to focus on sustainability as core to my business, and eventually led me to found my own company 6 years ago that focuses specifically on sustainable products.
So when the green movement really took off and the USGBC was starting to look for chapters to organize, we were early in because that was really the foundation of our business. And there were others in the community who were clearly involved in that, and you probably have talked to some of them or know some of them anyway, but there was a nucleus of interested parties in Twin Cities who were already active.
I remember our first meeting. It was in a room over at the University of Minnesota. There were about 15, 17 people there. And somebody made the remark that if a bomb fell on this building right now, the entire sustainability movement in Minnesota would be wiped out.
I remember in the formation committee that one of the things we were looking at is what is the role of a Minnesota chapter here when there's already so many green groups working in so many areas. And one of the things we realized was that since USGBC is a multi-stakeholder organization, that was something, one of the things that was unique they could bring, in that all these different groups we had going on here were not necessarily collaborating or coordinating.
And I think maybe in the early 2000s there was a lot of dialogue in Minnesota because a lot was going on. I mean, B3 had started, and we had the Hennepin County Sustainable Guidelines. And the White Group. There was a lot of activity, but I think a lot of people were looking for a focal point. What could be the home base?
Well, creating a chapter really mattered because it's like creating a home. We had all been aware of what was going on nationally, and we also felt that if we were really going to have a movement, we needed to have a local movement, and we needed to cooperate and not be simply out competing with one another to share the word randomly or hunt after the same people to recruit individually to our own personal camps. We really wanted to help build the tent, build the community, because the idea is if you made the community larger, it would be better for everybody in terms of the opportunities to share their green knowledge, and also obviously better for the environment.
So when we first started, we were getting people together who were architects, who were academics, government officials, construction companies, and all kinds of people who were just interested in environmental issues as well. So it was a great collection of people with many different ideas about how to make it all work.
Knew of other chapters that probably were farther ahead than us, especially out in Seattle, and those kind of folks in Portland. and they had been putting up some decent buildings, and so that was my thinking is this is what we got to get to.
I think the concept of having state chapters probably didn't bubble up until quite a few years later. I'm guessing we were one of the early ones.
So I think people were interested in being part of this growing movement nationally, even though we had things going on locally. How could we connect to this, what was clearly a growing movement, and be on the map? Frankly, sometimes Minnesota wasn't on the map because it didn't have as many LEED buildings, and that became a national metric for green building activity. We had other approaches to measuring green buildings, but we didn't have LEED, and we had enough going on here that it was important for us to be part of this national conversation and movement.
As this chapter began to grow, and it relied so much on the backs of all the volunteers who put in so many hours pulling together educational programming and writing policies and really working really hard.
So I worked in forming this with Jim Keller, Rochelle Schessler-Lynn at the time. Those are the people I was probably the closest with in terms of getting the chapter formulated.
Some of the really big names were people like John Carmody from Center for Sustainable Building Research and Rick Carter from LHB. We had Doug Pierce from Perkins and Will. And there were many other people, of course, involved as well.
Well, John Carmody from the university was president. Doug Pierce was president early on. And of course, I'm going to leave out everybody's name who really should be included. You know, Jim Keller was an early leader and really helped, I think, with some of the initial fundraising efforts and getting sponsors. And a lot of money came as a result of Jim talking to people.
You know, just being part of something like this at the beginning is just a thrill.
Well, Rick Carter was one of the first people that I met when I joined the chapter, and a dear friend who's passed away since then, Rebecca Voss.
It's really interesting to see how it's grown, because I think it's grown larger than I thought it would. I thought, it might work with a staff person or two, but it's so much more than that now, and I think it's great. It's fun to see it have developed this way and kind of have a life of its own. And people who are just joining now, they have no idea who I am and don't care, and they shouldn't. But there were a lot of people that worked really hard in the early days to make it something that could grow. Got the seed in the soil, gave it enough water, gave it enough sunshine, and then it grows.
It really is a small community of architects and engineers and builders in general. And so the people that really were working on the green movement got a lot closer together. Rick Carter and Rochelle are still my friends. Jim Keller is still my friend. We were friends. I think we became closer friends, through going through this level of effort.
In my context was AIA, where we've had 75,000 members and chapters in every state, for probably 100 years. So this was starting something like that from scratch. And I think my first involvement, really being involved, was on the board probably a couple years later. And, I remember thinking at the time it was probably just like the 50 people that started USGBC. It was the people who were really excited about green, like Kevin said, and...
For me, it was, I enjoyed these people. I thought they were all really smart. I knew I could learn from them. It was a way to share information and feel like I was part of a bigger community and a bigger movement with purpose, and thought I could be more effective that way.
And I spent a lot of time chasing after architects, contractors, anybody who'd be interested in listening, and I'd say, I'll buy you lunch, I'll buy you breakfast here if you want to do that. And inevitably, they always would buy it for me. I said, no, come on. But they were interested. People who were interested and were thinking about it, had heard about it, those are the folks that resonated, and those are the folks that got involved and made things happen.
You know, really at that time, almost 10 years ago, I had no idea that it was going to be such a major force in the industry. That, you know, what started out as kind of this crazy, you know, foreign concept is now really core to everything that's going on in the building industry right now.
When the chapter started, we were all really interested in trying to get things going and create some momentum. I don't think we realized how much it would take hold in the entire profession. It was certainly our dream, but it's very much been realized in terms of the breadth of the involvement in it. And but it's really exciting to see because our role has really changed. I mean, we wanted to create that class of practitioners, and now those practitioners are far beyond where people like me, more generalists, can go at this point in time. So it's great.
It's so well known now, Green Building Council, and it's just, if you're in the business, you're going to hear about it no matter what. And it's best to connect with those people that are interested or just learned about it.
That's an interesting question because you get asked that all the time, and there are stock answers that you give, and then there's what I would consider the real answer. I believe we're all put on this earth to take care of each other, humanity. So anything that works towards promoting or enabling humanity is something we want to do.
I have children, and I hope that my children have children. We only get one planet. And so I need to make sure that everything that I do as a manufacturer lessens that impact.
So now there's so many different outlets. There's Architecture 2030 and B3 and LEED and Living Building Challenge. And so maybe 10 years from now, the hope would be that those things surely aren't competing with one another, that they're feeding off of one another, or they've become the expectation. A lot of people would say, I think that, you know, wouldn't it be great if instead of having the building code be the most energy you can consume by law and have all these other things be voluntary, that we really actually require people to do the right thing? I think that's conceivable in the next 10 years. I mean, if we don't, we're in serious trouble. So
I think one of the biggest challenges is not stopping at greener than before and getting to where we need to go.
Oh, my advice for young professionals, I guess, would be to think big and really think about not just how to practice green building on their job, but really how green building fits into the bigger picture of sustainability and climate change and resilience, and to really figure out how they can, over the long runs, over their careers as they look forward, that they can have a big impact in that.
Get involved with people that are interesting, with people that are passionate, and it's really amazing when you can get together with those folks, what you can accomplish together. You know, this chapter was tiny 10 years ago, and look where we are now. And I made wonderful friendships and business connections through that have really both helped me in my career and made my career more pleasant.
Do the right thing, be visionary, and be collaborative.
We don't have a lot of time anymore to do whatever it is that we're going to do the right thing. I think we need to be more aggressive, and we need to do things at a much bigger scale, not just big buildings instead of small buildings or campuses or neighborhoods. We need to be thinking at city scale and regional scale, and you know, doing things that aren't necessarily the normal LEED certified building, but things that are compatible with that. But just be more aggressive, I guess.
If we want to preserve the planet so that our future offsprings have a place to live, then do the right thing. Do the right thing means to use recycled materials. It means to save energy. It means to put in a system where you don't have to sit at a traffic light for 45 minutes to get through, like I did this morning, to get through to where you've got to go. So it's about a systems approach as well, would be the second thing I would say. Green alone is not good enough. It has to be completely integrated with everything that you do. And I think the USGBC is one of the few organizations that is in existence today that actually has that as a mission.
I hope they are doubly passionate and sense the urgency. I know that we can do it. And I don't want to put it all on them. I still have a lot of work to do, but everybody needs to do it, and everybody needs to participate in the change.